Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamunatira Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Yamuna Tiravanachari Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Srila Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Srila Prabhupada Janite Gaur Premanande Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Chayamatirayet Nasta Prayeshu Patreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevayam Bhagavati Uttama Shlokir Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 4 Chapter 31 Really? Damodar hat auf 5 gehabt, oder?
Nein, es ist...
Damodar hat den Text 5. Vorgestern. Wie habt ihr das geschafft?
Gestern war 7. Heute ist 8.
Also hast du was in deinem Modell?
Ja. Ich bin gestern auf dem Altar gewesen. Okay, Hare Krishna. Text number 8. Maitreya Uvacha Iti prachetasam prishto Bhagavan Narado Munihi Bhagavatyuttama Shloka Avishtatma Pravinripan Maitreya Uvacha Iti prachetasam prishto Bhagavan Narado Munihi Bhagavatyuttama Shloka Avishtatma Pravinripan Maitreya Uvacha Iti prachetasam prishto Bhagavan Narado Munihi One, two, three. Dina.
Maitreya Uvacha
Maitreya Uvacha
Iti prachestam Christo Bhagavan Narado Muni Bhavati Uttama Shloka Avishtamam Pravinirtam
Maitreya Uvacha
Iti prachetasam Krishna
Ti prachetasam prishto
Bhagavan Narado Muni
Bhagavan Narado Munihi
Bhagavati Uttama Shloka
Bhagavati Uttama Shloka
Avishtama Pravindripan
Krishnama Pravinripan. Word for word translation. Maitreya Uvacha Maitreya said Iti thus Prachetasam by the Prachetas Prishta being asked Bhagavan the great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narada Munihi very thoughtful Bhagavati in the Supreme Personality of Godhead Uttama Shloke possessing excellent renown Avishta absorbed Atma whose mind Apravid replied Nripan to the kings. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The great sage Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, being thus petitioned by the Prachetas, the supreme devotee Narada, the supreme devotee Narada, who is always absorbed in thoughts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead began to reply. Please repeat. The great sage Maitreya continued. My dear Vidura, being thus petitioned by the Prachetas, the supreme devotee Narada, who is always absorbed in thoughts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, began to reply. In this verse, Bhagavan Narada indicates that Narada is always absorbed in thoughts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavatyuttama Shloka, Avishtatma. Narada has no other business than thinking of Krishna, talking of Krishna and preaching about Krishna. Therefore, he is sometimes called Bhagavan. Bhagavan means one who possesses all opulences. When a person possesses Bhagavan within his heart, he is also sometimes called Bhagavan. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said, Shakshat Taritvena Samasta Shastre. In every Shastra, the spiritual master is accepted directly as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This does not mean that the spiritual master or a saintly person like Narada has actually become the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But he is accepted in this way because he possesses the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart constantly. As described here, Avishtatma. When one is simply absorbed in the thought of Krishna, one is also called Bhagavan. Bhagavan possesses all opulence. If one possesses Bhagavan within his heart always, does he not automatically possess all opulences also? In that sense, a great devotee like Narada can be called Bhagavan. However, we cannot tolerate when a rascal or impostor is called Bhagavan. One must possess either all opulences or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, who possesses all opulences. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitan Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swavadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutabhata Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakrachatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sachivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. In this purport, Srila Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada is emphasizing this point or this concept of Bhagavan. Bhagavan means one who is full of opulence. Bhaga is opulence, and Bhagavan is the proprietor or the owner of opulence. And just like sometimes Srila Prabhupada explains that a servant who lives in the king's palace because he is serving the king. He always has to be there, and he gets to enjoy the same opulences, mostly the same opulences as the king, because he lives in the palace. He gets to eat the same food as the king, whatever is left. And of course he may have a very simple room in the palace, but mostly he's living in a very opulent place. So the point is that somebody who is serving Krishna, he is partaking in the same transcendental nature as Krishna. So of course Krishna, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is Satchidananda, full of bliss, eternity and knowledge, and the living entity is also full of bliss, eternity and knowledge. But being in this conditioned state of material existence, we are covered by the three modes of nature and by the different elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. So, being covered with these elements and these three modes, we don't experience this eternity, bliss, and knowledge. Rather, we experience temporality of the material world. Everything is temporary, everything degenerates. Then we experience, instead of knowledge, we experience ignorance. He said that even when Mahavishnu, when he sleeps, he is in a state of meditation, so he doesn't actually sleep. So in the spiritual realm, there is no such thing of complete inert consciousness as we experience here when we sleep sometimes. At least when we wake up, we don't remember anything. The mind may be active, but it doesn't have any context to our wake consciousness, or no value. Generally, there's not much value. Of course, somebody who is on the transcendental platform, he will, even within his sleep, he will be chanting and he will be remembering Krishna and dreaming about Krishna's pastimes. But usually, when we dream at night, there are thoughts which have been disturbing us in the day, something which we couldn't quite wrap our mind around. And the more one becomes the servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is actually able to enjoy those same opulences, but in a different way. So the devotee doesn't worship Krishna for some material possessions. This is what we had in the previous verse, where the Prachetas were praying for transcendental knowledge. Because this transcendental knowledge helps one to cross the ocean, or the dark nescience of material existence. So an intelligent person, first of all, understands what is our nature, which is very nicely explained in the Vedanta Sutra. So one doesn't need to read all the Vedas, because the Vedanta Sutra is the conclusion, and it starts by saying that we are transcendental, we are Brahman. So of course there is many different ways to interpret the Vedanta Sutra. If one thinks one is the body, then one would say that, okay, the body is Brahman. That means everything is Brahman. And more accurate explanation is that everything is an energy, everything is an energy of Brahman, an emanation of Brahman. But there are different types of energy. So the material energy is the illusory energy. So the physical body is real, but it's temporary, and it is it's a covering of the soul, of the eternal soul. So the more one has absorbed one's mind and consciousness or actions, the mind, words and actions in Krishna's service, one has these opulences. So what are these opulences? These are wealth, fame, renunciation, power, two more, one, beauty, yeah, power, wealth, fame, beauty, power, renunciation and knowledge. Yes, so these are the 6 opulences, and usually everything in this world that is considered valuable can be categorized in one of these 6. And we can see that people who have some of these opulences, they're generally considered attractive. If somebody is very powerful, he attracts a lot of attention. It may be negative attention, it may be positive attention, but there is some these people, they awaken some interest in the general public. If somebody is beautiful, no question, attracts the attention. If somebody is very rich, rich people, they generally have to live in a very closed environment, because money is very attractive, and everybody wants to have a piece of this. And power, we had money, beauty, fame, sometimes, yes, fame and renunciation. So renunciation, mostly in previous times and still in India, renunciation is respected. We don't know this so much here in the West, that somebody who is renounced usually it's not so much of a concept that people are aware of, that this is this is so special. But in the Vedic culture, renunciation is a very respected quality. And when a materialistic person comes in contact with a renounced person, sometimes they realize, oh my God, it's just, it's like the guru or a self-realized person is here explained like somewhere else explained like the sun. So the sun lights up the darkness. So if somebody comes somehow or other in contact with somebody who is renounced, like usually you get whoever you associate with, there is some, it rubs off, you inherit some of those qualities. So if you spend time with a renounced person, then you start to become aware of the futility of many of the things that you are considering so special and so important. It's one of the items of knowledge. Did you go through these different items of knowledge? The Bhagavad Gita yesterday? Yes? No? Chapter 13, yes. Yes. So there are 20 things which are considered to be knowledge. So, what is the general understanding of knowledge? It's anything that is any type of information that is true, right? And generally we don't know if it's true really, because we're conditioned by the imperfect senses. We make mistakes, we have imperfect senses, and we have cheating propensity. So we don't actually know if it's accurate knowledge. And it's very, very well known that many scientific studies are often they require a lot of funding, and often they are sponsored by the industry, by a particular industry, to prove that their product is safe. So this type of knowledge is contaminated by this cheating propensity. So how do we know if something is pure knowledge? If it's coming from a source which is surrounded by these different items here. Humility. So the opposite of humility is pride or mada, which is madness. So if somebody is proud, then whatever information comes from that source is tainted by madness, actually. What would be the example for this? Any example? Somebody who was giving knowledge, but it was contaminated by this. Yeah, but specifically pride. Yes.
Maybe the whole theory that God doesn't exist and that the earth and everything comes from nothing.
The theory that God doesn't exist and everything comes from nothing. Maybe this is more related to envy. I don't know. But pride is a manifestation of envy. Yes, also.
Yeah, probably
Christian.
many people believe and don't even know that God exists, so they just think the human beings are like on the top of the scale, and so they make some theories to prove that it is like that. So
Okay, yes.
the-
So thinking that humanity is the summum bonum of creation, the perfection of creation, which in one sense on one level, it's true that the human form of life is the most valuable, considered most valuable, because it can be used for self-realization. But the atheistic person or the demonic person will understand, because it's the highest, therefore whatever theories we make up it's probably perfect, right? Something like this.
No, if we see like there are so many demigods and everyone who's controlling us, then we're like, yeah, I'm not so important. But when we put ourselves on top of the scale, then it's actually, yeah, we have control over everything, and that's very proud.
Okay, so yes, thinking, if one thinks that that we as humans in the 21st century, that we are the most advanced, then we think that we will be right. What we say is correct. So the knowledge that comes will be correct. Anyway, okay. So there's definitely some contamination when one is conditioned by these different defects. So humility, pridelessness, one doesn't consider oneself to be so significant that, you know, I've studied this and this and this and this, and therefore I know what's correct. Non-violence. So you know, somebody who is this subject could be researched quite a lot. Like, why is non-violence required for pure knowledge? Maybe one concept we could relate this to is the degradation of intelligence. That when material desires are not fulfilled, then one becomes angry, and through anger, delusion arises. And anger, like violence, is a symptom of anger, actually. So when you're violent or involved in any type of violence, then you'll become delusioned, covered by illusion. And tolerance, simplicity. So if one is not tolerant, one may just jump to conclusions in the pursuit of knowledge. So, okay, I don't have time. Let's just make, I kind of sort of understand the concept, so let's just, make a conclusion. So this is how we can understand this, perhaps. Simplicity. Often the concepts in Shastra are quite simple, relatively simple explained. Like, some people say Bhagavad Gita is so complicated, you should not even try to understand. But it's not so complicated, really. It's complicated if you try to make some alternative interpretation that you should not surrender Krishna. When Krishna says surrender to me, it doesn't mean himself as a person. He means the unborn Brahman within him. So when you cannot understand the knowledge with simple logic, I mean, simple logic means as it is, then you make it so complicated. You come up with your own theory, which is based on these conditioning aspects, the imperfect senses, cheating propensity, etc. And we can also experience this actually our day-to-day lives as devotees, that if we're confronted with some conflict and we don't Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki jai, Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai. So in the life of a devotee, every obstacle is considered a opportunity to remember Krishna and to think, what does Krishna want me to do in this situation? Or to remember Shastra. What does Shastra say about this? What does Srila Prabhupada say about this? We find this in the Christian community. They have this concept of this term called, what would Jesus do? So every time there is some conflict or some difficulty, some obstacle, they think, what would Jesus do in this situation? Because there is not the entire life of Jesus is documented, but a large amount of his activities and his behavior is documented. So similarly, we also have Chaitanya Charitamrita and other scriptures, Srimad Bhagavatam, that have a vast amount of examples of different situations and how great personalities act in this situation. So, therefore, simplicity means, okay, we understand this is a great person and this is how he acts or how she acts. So therefore, let me try to assimilate this mood. Not that we imitate, but try to understand the mood. Approaching a bona fide spiritual master is also knowledge, an item of knowledge. Tatviti pranipatina pariprashnena sevaya upatikshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. This is one of the verses that the let's say the person who tries to interpret Bhagavad Gita from perhaps even in the name of science, from an objective point of view. Some people say, okay, I'm going to interpret Bhagavad Gita as it is, from a scientific point of view, unbiased by religion, or unbiased by philosophy. But this is also not possible. Unfortunately, it's not possible, because you need to have, however you interpret some information, you are coming from some type of background, from some type of context. So the context is given, the correct context is given by Krishna in chapter 4, that one should inquire from a spiritual master, which is why we have Srila Prabhupada's purports. One should inquire how to understand the knowledge. So Srimad Bhagavatam is already the purport of the Vedanta Sutra. And it's quite bewildering that for us this is common knowledge. It's explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the first couple chapters how the Srimad Bhagavatam came about. And for us it's very clear that this is written by Srila Vyasadeva, the same author as the Vedanta Sutra. So this is the explanation of the Vedanta Sutra. So there's no actually any further explanation of Vedanta Sutra required. Or if there is, it should be in pursuance of the Srimad Bhagavatam. But somehow Krishna gives remembrance, knowledge and forgetfulness. So sometimes he allows us to take things out of context and so if somebody has a desire to use Shastra for their own materialistic purpose, then we are able to only see what we want to see, and we take it out of context, and that's why these explanations of Vedanta Sutra come about, as per my understanding. And of course, when great personalities like Shankaracharya comment on Shastra, then we understand that they do so with a particular mission. So we know that the purports of Shankaracharya are not, they're not the perfect explanation, let's say, of Shastra. But we know that he established this interpretation for the benefit of a certain class of people, a certain community, in order to help them to advance spiritually. For us, it can be very difficult to understand. For an inexperienced devotee, it can be difficult to know how to present spirituality to a person according to their understanding. But somebody who is an acharya, like Srila Prabhupada, also, we also accept Shankaracharya as an acharya, but not a Vaishnava acharya. So he's also an acharya, and he knows how to present the knowledge for the benefit of the particular audience. And Srila Prabhupada, when he came to America, he was observing a lot the lifestyle and the philosophy, the understanding of the people, in order to know how to present a Krishna consciousness to them. I heard also that sometimes Srila Prabhupada used to wake up very early in the morning, around 1 o'clock or 1:30 or something, and he would translate his books with the dictaphone. Translate and write and give the purports. And sometimes he would stop for a few days, and then the disciples would ask, Prabhupada, you stopped translating, or you stopped writing purports. And Srila Prabhupada said, I'm trying to think of how to present this particular point, how to make you understand. Srila Prabhupada was constantly meditating on how to present this knowledge so that we can relate to it. So I went a little bit back to the previous verse because I made a mistake due to my imperfect senses and false reasoning that we are covering text number 7. So coming back to text number 8, this Bhagavan, the word Bhagavan, Narada Muni is here addressed as Bhagavan because he is a pure devotee of Krishna, and therefore he inherits all the opulences. So Narada Muni is a perfect renunciate. He is one of the sons of Brahma, along with the 4 Kumaras, who are renunciates. They did not enter into family life and remained renunciates, remained celibate. And Narada Muni, so what does it mean? So if somebody is a renunciate but he's still considered Bhagavan, so it's not only that renunciation, but also a pure devotee. He has access to all the opulence of Krishna because Krishna becomes subservient to the devotee. we have this see. It's maybe a subject for another time. How how Krishna becomes subservient to the devotees. Like Arjuna is an example. Krishna became his charioteer, which means that he has to sit and guide the horses while Arjuna would kick him with his feet. So that was the system, that with the feet, the chariot driver, no, how do you say the person who sits on the chariot? The passenger would indicate to the charioteer with the feet how he should, where he should go. Because you cannot, on the battlefield there's very, very much noise. You cannot say, okay, now go left, now go right, now faster. You just do with the feet. Yeah, treten. Genau. So this is an example of how Krishna becomes the servant of the devotees. Because for us, Krishna is the most worshipable object, but for Krishna, the devotees, the pure devotees, are the most worshipable object. So that's why serving the devotees is the most exalted activity. It's actually more pleasing to Krishna than worship of himself. So if you can choose between doing Puchari Seva and serving an advanced devotee, then serving the advanced devotee is actually considered higher, if it's done with the good conscience, with the right mood. Of course, you can make. We had this a few weeks ago, that there are 64, I believe 64 offenses in deity worship. So these, similarly in the service of devotees, there's also every chance of making mistakes, making offenses. But if some mistake or some offense is made in the pursuit of service, then that offense is not so grave and is generally easily forgiven. But the one mood that we should try to develop is to ask forgiveness from the devotees for mistakes, and then we're on the safe side. Just like when we do our Puchari service, we have one list of mantras in the Puchari room, which are called Aparada Shodhana mantras. They are a prayer asking for forgiveness for any mistakes that we may have made in the procedure of worship, and mantras that we may have mispronounced. So, of course, we should not be like the person who goes to the church or to the temple and says, "My dear Lord, I have made this and this mistake, I have sinned like this, and please forgive me. Here is your money." and then carry on with life. Actually, the purpose of devotee is always trying to do his best, or should always be trying to do his best. Preaching to myself, to not make any mistakes in our service, and always try to improve our service for the pleasure of Krishna. Hare Krishna. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Now it's past. So No questions. It's not. Okay, you can ask a short question. We'll just take 2 minutes. Yes.
I was wondering, also, you made the point that in the spiritual world we actually don't sleep because, of course, we're not in ignorance at any time. So I was wondering if we're on the spiritual platform all the time, like we are not contaminated, then is it that we actually don't have to be unconscious again? Because we also Alpha only yesterday also said like it is not that we're actually like here in the material world and the spiritual world is very far away, but if we have this Krishna consciousness to stay always in this service, then we're actually in the spiritual world. So we also see that same people don't sleep that much anymore. But I was just wondering if we actually don't sleep anymore if we're with other
In this life?
in the spiritual platform. Yeah.
You mean in the physical body?
Yeah.
Okay, so the question is whether if one is fully self-realized, one doesn't need to sleep. Srila Prabhupada was, he gave the example how when he became, in his last few weeks, he was not able to eat anything, and at some point he was not able to sleep, didn't eat, sleep, and then he said, so now I have even given up eating. So, but generally, as long as we have a physical body, we do have to eat. We are, we have this gross body, and that's why the pure devotees, they go to the spiritual world, because you don't have these obstacles. Of course, Krishna could at any time, you could say, okay, now your body is eternally immune to any kind of material, what do you call it? Adipautika, adhyatmika, adidevika, klesha. All these tribulations coming from material nature, from your own body, from other living entities. But that defeats the purpose. Like, devotees come here to show how to live in the material world as a devotee. So Krishna doesn't obstruct the function of the material nature generally. Yeah. Of course, sometimes the 6 Goswamis explain that they sometimes forgot to eat, they sometimes forgot to sleep. And we know that in the material society, sometimes people who are very much in the mode of ignorance, like be it drugs or video games, or they totally forget to sleep and to eat. And sometimes they just die because of this. So similarly, devotees, like Lord Chaitanya says, how can I live in this body? If I had pure love for Krishna, I would not be able to live, because you would not be able to think of your physical maintenance. But the physical maintenance is required. So that's why the pure devotees, they leave this world as soon as they finish their service. So that's my understanding. Hare Krishna. Would you like to comment anything? Yes? No? Okay. Hare Krishna. Okay. Thank you very much for being here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.
Right.